Today is September 24th. It is approximately 6:33 p.m. Due to the health and safety concerns related to the COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be conducted by video conference or telephone call. At least a quorum of board will be participating by video conference call in accordance with the provisions section 551 of the 1.125 or 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that have not been suspended by the order of the governor. The subject to be discussed or considered upon which any formal action may be taken are listed below. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown in this meeting notice unless removed from the consent agenda. Items identified within the consent agenda will be acted at one time. So I call this meeting to order. Roll call. Let me see, Mr. J.J. Ibarra.
Here.
Mr. Tony Barco.
Here.
Mr. Rolly Lozano.
Here.
Mr. Robert Schmalfrey.
Here.
Mr. Robert Peacock.
Here.
Mr. Chris Morales.
Here.
Fernando Torres is also present. So we do have a quorum. Mr. Schmalfrey, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Lozano, could you lead us in a prayer?
Yes. In the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance and your presence with us tonight during this meeting. Help us make the correct decision for this district and our students, and help us get past this COVID-19 pandemic and anyone who's been affected by the pandemic. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, we'll go into item 3. Any comments from the public?
No comments, sir.
All right, then we're going to go into the discussion items. Discussion A, B, C, and D. I'd ask at this time if we could have a motion to put discussion 4A and 5A into executive.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All right, there's a motion from Mr. Schmalfrey, second by Mr. Lozano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, so then we're going to go into 4B, attendance update. Okay.
Good afternoon, board, Mr. President, members of the board. I am going to share some attendance and enrollment updates with you. We are currently in the 18th day, and I'd like to share that information with you now. Let me just find my screen. Okay, so these are the latest figures from the 23rd of September. It includes increases and decreases in our enrollment based on each campus. As you can see, the Edcott Chelsea High School has decreased over the last 18th or 17th day of enrollment by 37 students. We look at Garcia Elementary, we are down 33 students. We have gained some students at Ruan and Ibarra, 7 and 15. JFK has lost 33 students, RCR 34, and LBJ 61. One thing I wanted to point out in this presentation is that when we look at the pre-K and we look at the number 117, we can divide that by 2 if we're thinking of numbers of students, because that is a half-day enrollment. And then we have our Head Start at negative 45. So on the next slide, I'll show you what that looks like with the pre-K being divided for the half-day enrollment. That looks a little bit better as far as the loss of students. We're down 262. Our attendance appears to be up district-wide at this point at negative 2.96. So we are showing some increased attendance. Glad to report that we are, at this point, recovering more and more students and making sure that we're counting them as much as possible in their attendance. We see an increase at the high school, and we also have an increase in our Head Start program over the same time at this point last year. So we're trending in the positive direction, and we are making sure that we're engaging all our students. I did check with Mrs. Rocha this afternoon. She indicated that we are still working to recover those students that are no-shows. We've made 16 home visits over the past week. We were able to recover 2 students at the run, and then 2 more students at the high school. So we are slowly chipping away at that number. We're at about 59 students now, and we still have till October 30th to get those students, and of course, the sooner the better, to get them back into the district. I'll take any questions on enrollment and attendance board if you have any.
Doctor, on the attendance portion, I know that Mrs. Rocha has been sending the report, so I know that was the intent, but maybe for the next report, we can do maybe an average, attendance average from day 1 to now, just so that we'll have an idea of where we are overall. I see this one's here for is 923, comparing it to 918 of last year. So I see an improvement, but maybe for the next report, we can maybe do on the bottom just an average between now and from the first day to, I guess right today was the 18th day, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, based on that,
I can prepare that for you.
Okay.
Dr. Rodriguez, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just to get a better understanding of the community and the parents, are the students that we've lost, are they, majority of them to another district, or is it just some that they just decide not to come to school or to register in a district, any district? And that's what I kind of bother me, that if that's the case, and these students are just at home and they're just not doing anything, and that's not good for them. We need to go and talk to them, and we need to make them understand that they need to get their education and how important it is. But I guess my question is, would you happen to know, and I know you've only been here 2-3 weeks, are they just not registered in any district?
No, so you can see my screen now. You can see where we are tracking the students. So, for example, at Garcia Elementary, if I were to take that school, 21 have enrolled in another Texas school, 3 have enrolled out of state, 2 returned to Mexico, 2 are migrants who are now out of state, and then 2 have other reasons that I don't have them listed here, but other reasons that they have not enrolled. So there's one.
I don't see that on the screen.
Oh, you don't see it? Okay. Let me try to show that. How's that?
Okay, that's better. That's better.
So yes, we are. You'll notice that there's 246 students overall that have enrolled in another Texas school, and then 17 that have enrolled out of state, 10 that have gone back to Mexico, 26 migrants that are currently traveling, and then 7 other reasons. So the number I want to focus on is this 59 students. Those are the ones that we need to find out, why they haven't shown up, and that's where I'm persisting that we continue to make home visits. I'll also have a meeting scheduled with ELSA PD to assist some of the principals in knocking on doors, because again, they run into situations where they've been knocking on doors and either the parents will not respond or open the doors, and it's not intended to intimidate or scare the parents, but it is intended to show them that we are serious about having their students log into the system or check in with us. We just really care about how they're doing, and if they're okay is really what we want to check on. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's just worrisome, that our students are not, logging on or just getting the education that they deserve, and it just worries me. Every child needs to have that opportunity, and I know due to the situation, the online learning is hard, and it takes a lot of responsibility on the parent and the child, but they're not alone. They need to know we're here to help them, and we're here to do anything that we can to assist them to get that education. So it just worries me, knowing that those 59 students, where are they?
Right. No, I agree, so I continue to push to make sure that we're following up and making home visits with all of these students. And again, I think it's going to help when we get some assistance from PD just to knock on doors with us and just show like, okay, we're really concerned. And at some point, if we have to, it'll be a CPS kind of case because it's educational neglect if we're not connecting with school.
Doctor, maybe on piggybacking on what Robert is mentioning is that maybe we need to send somebody out there to camp out there. I mean, maybe kids are there alone, they don't answer the door, and parents don't come in until the afternoon, and they're not aware that somebody's been there. Maybe have people go at different hours of the afternoon or night to make contact.
Okay. Maybe even if the district could put like a door hanger, hey, we came to see you, or please contact us, we're concerned, and we want to talk or whatnot, and just another day that we came by. I don't know if we do that, but just an idea.
So we can definitely make sure we're doing that.
All right. Any other questions for the doctor as far as attendance update?
No, good.
All right, then let's go for item 4C. Reentry plan. Doctor?
So we are naming our plan Return to Learn. We are taking every step possible to ensure that we are first addressing the safety of our students and our staff as they return to school. In the development of this plan, I want to recognize the two co-chairs of this, primarily Mrs. Sandra Ochoa and Mrs. Francis Rocha. They have organized a team to prepare the plan. Mrs. Ochoa just submitted the first draft of that plan to me. I'll be able to go over some of the overview of what that plan looks like. But most importantly, we're operating from the point that we have asked every single campus to make personal contact with every family, not just send a survey out on a web page that we know it's hard for people to access if you're not visiting our web page or you don't have internet access. So we have asked every principal, and some principals have been very diligent to get 100% of their students responding in that survey. And they put forth every effort to make sure every kid has indicated whether they're going to continue in distance learning, whether they're going to return to school, or whether they're going to look at some type of a hybrid model where they're partially attending and partially doing remote instruction. What that looks like percentage-wise, you can see that out of the 4,505 students, we have a response rate of 81%. That means that 3,666 students have been made contact with, and we have then looked at these response rates. So if you look at high school, it's at 51% response, and then Thrones at 90, Ugadas at 82, JRG is at 94, and JRG is looking at students that are not enrolled in Head Start, but just primarily in the pre-K. LBJ is 100%, RCR is 100%, JFK is 100%, and FCS is at 98%. The questions we wanted to find out, what we wanted to know was, are you going to continue online? Are you going to do partial, which is a blended learning model, or are you coming back for in-person learning? We also understand that there's students who have special needs or students who are more vulnerable or have bigger gaps that we need to really get back. And then the other question that we asked that was important was the internet access. Do you have internet access? Do you have a device? So you can see there from the responses of those that responded to the survey, we still have some families without internet access, and we still have some families that are lacking a device. When I followed up with the high school today, we discovered that the high school had approximately 40 hotspots at the high school, and there was approximately 40 students that didn't have hotspots. So through the survey process, we were able to then have Ms. Tijerin and her staff contact those families and say, look, we have hotspots here. You need to, come get them because we need you back online. So we also look at transportation needs. If parents were going to indicate whether they're dropping off their child or whether there's a transportation through the bus system. And you'll see the numbers there for transportation of drop-off and the transportation of bus. This is the first step in getting the plan off the ground, because we need to know how many students are actually returning to in-person learning. And then the next component of that is to do a 100% response rate from our staff to indicate who are the ones that have underlying medical conditions, the ones that have issues with childcare, the ones that are going to be filing for FMLA based on caring for somebody who's ill in their family. But all of those processes are going to take a lot of man and woman power on the backside, because once somebody says, I have an underlying medical condition, we're not asking them to disclose that, but we are asking them to then work with HR. And as you know, HR is very limited at this point in being able to have enough staff to respond to this. So we are very concerned that once we get those response rates from our staff, that we then have to, those that indicate that they have some concern, we have to make contact with each one of those staff members, and we have to then, ask for the appropriate documentation, make sure that they're aware of the appropriate levels of leave that they can take, and then, be responsive to those that need us to respond to them. So I think that having gone through that in my previous district with, thousands and thousands of teachers, it took quite a bit of man and woman power to get that alignment of documentation from doctors, people filing for FFCRA or FCCRA, and all kinds of leave to make sure that our schools are staffed appropriately. But looking at these numbers, we know that out of our 4,505 students and our response rate of 81%, we have approximately 627 students that are saying that they want to return. So that's also going to let us start to plan, because we do have this data by grade level. It's going to let us know how many classrooms and how many teachers and how many teacher assistants are going to be needed for every school, and then that'll help us with the HR component. So here's another breakdown of the reopening survey response, again, by campus, the total number of responses for each category or each mode of learning: online learning, blended learning, and in-person learning. And then again, our internet access and no device situations here. I do feel that the 34 at the high school have been resolved, so we can knock those 34 right off the top. We still struggle with having sufficient devices for our students. This is an example of what the campus level data looks like by grade level, so that you can see here, for example, at JFK in kindergarten, there's 9 kindergarten students that are asking to return into in-person learning. We know that that number could increase based on the fact that once parents feel comfortable, they may start to bring more and more of their children to the school. But this does help us with staffing and knowing how many teachers are going to be required per grade level for the in-person learning, and also how many teachers are going to be required for the blended and online learning components as well. And these are just 2 sample. I didn't want to go through every school with you, but these are 2 samples. Again, Mrs. Ochoa and Mr. Ramos, Mr. Rene Ramos have been very instrumental, as well as the principals, in gathering all of this data so that we have something to work from. We also want to make sure we're looking at vulnerable students, those that receive special education services, and those that are English learners. And we have broken it down by their response rate as well. So we know that we want to focus on these students as well as those who do not have access, so that we get all of these students back into school and back into learning as quickly as possible. So I want to just go over the rough outline of what the plan will look like. We want to make sure that communication is a big component of this, because we're going to have to communicate every aspect of this plan so that parents feel safe in returning their children to school. We also want to focus on prevention of spread. And if there is a case where we do have somebody who tests positive for COVID, we want to make sure that we know what our response is going to look like. And of course, we want to reduce or mitigate anything that would introduce more virus into our schools. We're going to conduct at each campus a virtual town hall where we will cover attendance for students that are returning. We will continue to provide guidance on what virtual instruction should look like for those that are in the hybrid model or the blended model, and those that are remote. We will talk about what it needs to be enrolled in that specific mode of instruction. And then we will talk about the extracurricular. You'll hear from Coach Navarro in a minute on some of the athletic return plans. And then we also want to make sure that we're communicating the instructional plan for every child. What does it look like? Because at some point, should we have the need to shut schools back down, we shouldn't miss a beat when we go back into the remote instruction. So the plan has to be aligned so that we're mirroring the in-person instruction with blended with the remote instruction. We also want to make sure we're communicating prevention strategies for teachers and staff. So that's going to include signage. We have ordered the plexiglass shields for classrooms. We are also ensuring that we have sufficient PPE and sanitizer. I know that UL approved, I believe back in July, some touchless equipment. From what I've heard, I don't believe that any of that equipment's been ordered, and I don't believe that we have an idea of what exactly was approved, and we can discuss that later, but I want to make sure that we have ordered everything that needs to be ordered because we need enough lead time to get that into our schools. Visitor policy and procedures will be reviewed to ensure that we're not just allowing any visitor into our buildings because this is not the time to have visitors, and if it is, it's only essential visits and also only our staff that is entering the building. We have talked about having sign-in and sign-out sheets in classrooms so that whoever visits that classroom, if it's a special ed support teacher or a TA, we know who is in that room, so that way it will enable us to do contact tracing better because we'll know who is in that room. We also will be utilizing seating charts that indicate when a student left the room, and we'll also have assigned seats so that we understand where our students are should we need to do any kind of contact tracing if we find a case in our schools. We also have a plan to, when somebody gets confirmed or suspected to have COVID, we'll have a protocol for that. And we want to make sure that we know how to identify or how to respond when we think there's a possible COVID-19 case on campus. We've downloaded all of the resources we need from the CDC, from TEA. We want to make sure that when something does happen, we respond appropriately. We respond and we notify families who may have been put at risk for exposure with somebody who's suspected of COVID or confirmed with COVID. And we also want to reduce the spread of COVID. And that means putting up that signage on hand washing, making sure students have appropriate time to wash their hands, using hand sanitizer when hand washing is not available, talking about adjusting child nutrition schedules so that children are not eating in close proximity in a big space like a cafeteria. And then, of course, always reducing our risk to our employees by using the shields, the PPE, and then mandatory face coverings, of course, for all students, whether it's on transportation or in school. And of course, knowing that with young children, we need to have built-in mask breaks and time for students to remove their masks and not be wearing them the entire day. Part of the plan will also include what does the cleaning and disinfection process look like. We want to have a checklist for the campus to go through and say that these areas, these high-touch areas were cleaned every day. These specific areas have been disinfected. Should there be a suspected case of COVID in there? We also want to make sure that our nursing staff understands their roles and that we spell it out in the plan. We want to talk about the class size and how many students and teachers should be grouped together. And then also how we'll be using non-classroom spaces like gyms, hallways, cafeterias, and libraries. And then transportation has also chimed in. We have proposed seating charts and routes that have been made available by Mr. Rodriguez. And then we also want to have policies or procedures, I should say, on visitors and deliveries. Arrival and dismissal will look different because we can't have students congregating together. But knowing our numbers and seeing what we have so far, it is going to be fewer and fewer students that start. And so that'll help us get better at those arrival and dismissal procedures. And then we want to have our expectations for staff. We are planning to have a staff do a QR code where they scan in the morning and they check yes or no if they're feeling any of the symptoms. And then we can monitor that so that we know that staff are appropriately monitoring for COVID symptoms on their own. We're also going to promote that students do that at home as well. And we know that sometimes we have asymptomatic children, so we're going to continue to do self-screen with students, and then staff should be screening themselves through that questionnaire. This is an example of a seeing chart that was prepared by transportation. So looking at the bus, you can see that they're staggered. If the need arises, we have a backup plan where we would have fewer students than this on a bus, but this is option one. Option two would eliminate students in the it would be alternating rows. So you would have one student every other row, which would reduce the amount of kids on the bus even more. But this, based on the guidelines from Region 1 that Mr. Rodriguez was able to attend, this is the consideration for a bus in ISD. That is the broad strokes of the entry plan. I do know that Mrs. Ochoa is on the meeting on the Zoom as well, as is Mrs. Rocha, and they've been working very closely on the plan and putting together a committee of people, including teachers and principals, and then transportation, maintenance, and child nutrition. So that committee has been working on this plan, and I want to commend them for their hard work in getting that done. So we're nowhere near finished. That's the outline. The hard work is next week, and also submitting the teacher survey next week to start to figure out which staff will have plans to return and which may need accommodations. With that, I'll take your questions.
I'm a little disappointed on the as far as the data from the high school. Maybe in this next week, if we could get some additional surveys taken just to get a better feel, because 50%, that's a little low for the amount of attendance they're having on a day-to-day.
I did follow up with Mrs. Tijerina, and there may be a discrepancy because we're gathering all this data in a Google spreadsheet, and I want to confirm that the spreadsheet is accurate because this is where the data got pulled from. So I will confirm with her, maybe they have a separate spreadsheet, but all indication right now is that this is what is being reported in that online spreadsheet as recently as 3 p.m. this afternoon.
Hey, Doc, I have a quick question. I know that a couple of meetings ago, we discussed purchasing different hotspots, and I think Verizon was one of the new service provider that we're going to have. Do we have an update on that as far as when they're coming in, how many were ordered after all, and do you see those, helping out with some of these little discrepancies as far as some of our students who don't have access that might get access? I'd like to see, maybe we can look at the timeline to see when, and I don't know, Mr. Torres is available as far as to give us that update, but just so that we can know when those hotspots are projected to arrive, and that way if we can kind of balance the return, that way it's not that big of an impact. If we can have some of the individuals that don't have internet to remain at home instead of coming to the school, only because of the the lack of not having their internet. Do we have any of that information?
Mr. Torres, if you have any other information, would you please share with us?
Yes, sir, absolutely. The hotspots were ordered. We're still maybe within a week to 2 weeks out, sir. They do take a while to get here. And as far as the amount that were ordered, if you recall, the Verizon was almost, I don't want to say it was just twice as much, but it was pretty expensive. So when the board approved the $200,000 cap, I had to make a combination of AT&T and Verizon, because the more Verizon we ordered, the less amount of actual hotspots we could get. So we weren't going to be able to meet what the campuses were requiring.
Okay.
So in order to make it work so that we got the number that they were asking for, we could only order those things 52 Verizons.
Okay.
52, and the rest of them were AT&T.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Torres.
Any other questions on the reentry plan? Okay, not, then we'll go ahead and go to 4D, the athletic department startup. Doctor?
I have asked Coach Navarro to update us on this information, and if there's any other questions that I may be able to answer based on my conversations with the superintendents in our district, I will gladly chime in, but I've asked Mr. Navarro to speak to this topic.
Good evening, gentlemen. Pretty much what we have now is that at the moment that everybody's been waiting for, and a lot of our kids and community, the fall sports are planned to get started on the 28th of September. I know that we have, I've spoken to some of you briefly on, I guess, the CDC guidelines and UIL guidelines that we will be following. Every single one of our coaches or fall sports have been trained on proper PPE, proper guidelines, following the guidelines and protocols from UIL. We're just going to go ahead and have a continuation of what we did at this past summer, which is we go ahead and screen the kids before they go ahead and come in. We will also have QR codes. We're going to go ahead and have daily temperature checks. That's going to be every single day. We have specific entry and exit points for each and every single one of the kids. And again, as of right now, and just so that the board knows, the fall sports that I'm speaking about are cross country, volleyball, football, and tennis. Okay. Know that we belong to 3 different districts. And what I mean by that is football is in 16-5A, which is a standalone district. We're in 32-5A, which is pretty much the 4 Brownsville schools, ourselves, Westlaco, okay, Donna, and pretty much that would be 32-5A. And we also have another district for our middle schools. Now, I wanted the board to know this and for it to come from me. Please be aware that is not anything that EdCat JELSA went ahead and decided. A lot of these, for example, let me start with football. Every single one of those schools in 16-5A will not go ahead and field sub-varsity sports. Pretty much what it does to us as EdCat JELSA, as a school district, is that we have nobody to go ahead and play against. So I want to notify the board that it's going to be very difficult to field JV and freshman teams because everybody in our district has opted out of sub-varsity sports. Now, if we jump over to 32-5A, pretty much the same thing occurred there. The reasoning behind it is that a lot of these other school districts, the reason they're opting for non-sub-varsity sports is because they don't want to go ahead and shut down the entire athletic program based on a JV-like kid getting sick or a freshman golfing athlete getting sick as well and having to shut everything down. Again, in speaking to working together with the ADs, the other superintendents, these are the reasons that they're giving as to why they're going to be very cautious due to COVID-19. And they want to go ahead and limit only the fall. We're calling it the level 1 sports or the fall sports. This does not necessarily mean that it's going to carry over to the spring sports, okay, which are your soccer or baseball, softball, track. We're going to go ahead and as a district, like I said, this is a district decision. We're going to go ahead and look at this month by month and sport by sport. We want to go ahead and keep infections down, ensure the safety of each and every single one of our student athletes. As far as the middle school, unfortunately, the majority of the schools that compromise our middle school district are the 4 Westlaco schools, 2 Mercedes schools, and 4 Donna schools. Again, those schools have opted not to have sub-varsity sports. Because of that, once more, it's not very feasible for us to go ahead and try to play a Brownsville veterans team, while they themselves have their own middle school programs. And to be quite honest, this is a trend that the whole Rio Grande Valley is adopting. I'm going to say about 80% of the schools in the Rio Grande Valley have opted not to have sub-varsity sports. So I wanted the board to be aware of this. Again, it's not something that we went ahead and decided by ourselves, but this is more of a district decision. Right now, another update I want to see, let everybody know is that any questions so far from anybody?
No, Coach, I was made aware some of these schools, correct me if I'm wrong, they're having sub-varsity sports within their own district, correct? Like Westbrook, for example?
Since the last meeting that we had, and we just had a DC today, my understanding is that they are not.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? So I could continue. As far as the selling of the tickets, be aware that we're actively looking at going online. We're looking at online ticket sales. We will only have 2 home games for football, and this would be for football. Know that the district itself, and along with UIL, they're looking at the amount of people that are allowed in the venue. Right now, UIL has dictated to us that we can only have 50% capacity, and we also have to go ahead and take the social distancing into effect. So to give you, gentlemen, an idea, our stadium seats about 4,200 spectators, okay? We go ahead and get the 50% of those 4,200 will leave us with 2,100. Now, based on the CDC social distancing rule, pretty much 6 feet will equal to about 4 to 5 seats in our stadium, which pretty much cuts down the amount of people all the way to 840 per home side and the visitor side, because both sides on the football stadium fit 4,200 people. So I just want to go ahead and make that clear as well. When our community goes and tries to purchase tickets, a lot of these schools are going contactless. Therefore, they're going to go ahead and have online ticket sales. A lot of these people are going to have to go ahead and purchase these tickets online. I just want to go ahead and make that aware to everybody.
Coach,
yes, sir.
Is that going to be outsourced online, or are we taking care of the ticket sales ourselves?
Well, to be quite honest with you, sir, that's what we're studying it. We're looking at it. I don't want to give you false information. One of these individuals that is providing this service, the way that they do it is that they go ahead and they get a pretty much a picture of the stadium, the capacity of our stadium. They go ahead and upload it. They go ahead and block out so many spots. For example, we're looking at the 2 and 4 seats, meaning we're going to group them by 2s and 4s. Okay. What will happen is that, let's say they start buying, our community starts buying online. What will happen is that by that Saturday, they'll have a report of what was sold, what was received, and what they're promising me is that they will send to our business office a check for the amount of each of the tickets sold. So pretty much they'll go ahead and handle that. What we're going to have to take care of is still have our ticket ladies still scan all of these tickets, make sure that everybody's properly social distancing. We're still going to have to go ahead and police like we usually do, make sure that people do not sit together or sit in groups larger than what their ticket is given, because we are going to go ahead and section off all these areas. Okay. Does that answer?
I guess that was my question, Coach. Is there any equipment we're going to have to purchase as far as like scanner?
No, we will rent that. We'll rent it, and it's $75 a year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir. As far as the gymnasiums, again, this is for basketball and volleyball, gentlemen. What the district has decided, and again, I go back to saying to the district, this is compromise of every single one of the member schools, is that whether we go ahead and play here in Ecalchosa, or we go to Mercedes, or even go travel all the way to Brownsville, what they are recommending is that we only go ahead and give tickets to the parents. Okay, they're only going to go ahead and give a card to each one of the, let's use the volleyball girls, for example. Each one will get a pass for two for mom and dad or grandma and mom. It doesn't matter the combination. And so that'll be automatically 15 times 2 will give you 30. And then, of course, they're going to give 10 more for dignitaries, okay? And they can be given to anybody that's going to be a spectator, but no more or not to exceed the number of 40 per side of a gym. For example, when we go ahead and receive a visiting team, we're only going to allow or cut them off at 40, and they must have these passes. We're going to go ahead and mark off the bleachers as to where people can sit. And it's going to be the same thing on the home and the away side. The reason this is being done, gentlemen, is because we are going to go ahead and have games where we're going to have overlap of games, but from basketball and volleyball. I'm going to say that they overlap towards the end of the season with the girls, okay? So what is recommending is that each time we go ahead and have a game, let's just say that girls volleyball plays at 6 p.m. Once those parents, we go ahead and exit them out of the gymnasium, I have to go ahead and clean, sanitize, and take care of the gymnasium before we even receive the next batch of spectators into the gymnasium. We have to go ahead and wipe down, sanitize, follow, pretty much try to go ahead and ensure that the safety of everybody along with their players. Okay, so this is the reason behind all these things that we're doing to ensure the safety of our kids, spectators, and of course, administration that will be there. We're trying to be proactive as a district instead of reactive. Any questions on that, gentlemen?
No, not for me.
And that's what I have up to right now. Please be aware that this will only be for the fall sports. We have met, and again, this is something that is being done throughout the valley. We meet as a group of athletic directors. We meet with superintendents, and what we're trying to do is again, be proactive with COVID-19. We know how serious it can be, and we want to go ahead and ensure not only the safety of our students, but also the people that are going to go ahead and attend our games.
All right.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Sounds like a very safe plan, Coach. Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. All right, then next one is 5A, which is going to be in the executive. So then we go to 6, which is closed session. The superintendent requests that the Board of Trustees convene a closed meeting session. Closed meeting as authorized by the provisions of the Open Meeting Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. The executive session is in accordance with the Texas Government Code 551.074 for the purpose of discussing personnel considering appointment, employment, resignation, retirement, evaluation, or reassignment. 1, discussion on hiring the Human Resource Director. B, consultation with legal for any pending litigation or settlement offers that we may have. It is now 7:17 p.m. and we are now in executive session. All right, it's 8:22. We are now back from executive session. We're going to go ahead and go with the item 5A, discussion and possible action to purchase an AC unit from cooperative vendor for Ibarra Fine Arts Red Building, Migrant Department.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. I move to approve the purchase of an AC units from a cooperative vendor for Ibarra Fine Arts Red Building, using funds from possible insurance proceeds to repair damages as a result of the recent hurricane.
Second.
All right, there is a motion by Mr. Barco, second by Mr. Lozano. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Now we're going to go to item 7. Action items discussed in closed session. Discussion and possible action regarding personnel concern appointment, employment, resignation, retirement, evaluation. On the discussion on the action of hiring a human resource director. Doctor?
Mr. President, members of the board, the administration recommends that we hire Mr. Abraham Gallegos as the HR director for EdCal Delta ISD.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, second.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Lozano, second by Mr. Barco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Gallegos, as new HR director for Cachos ISD. Okay, now we're going to go to 7B, discussion and action regarding consultation with legal regarding contemplated litigations or settlement offers.
No action, sir. No action.
Okay, so then we're going to go to item 8, adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
There is a motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, guys. Doctor, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good evening.